to sometimes called the BLC Banter Bus, but it's the BLC Weekly Improv Chat. I'm John McInnes.
I'm John Gallagher-Portero, and we never call it the BLC Banterverse. Officially, it's called BLC Convos, but we here at BLC Banterverse like to call it that.
I love to call it that. And we have our good friend, the person who was our first guest, but at that point we weren't interested in how he did improv, and now I guess we have to find out. It's Micky Baker. How are you doing, Micky?
Hello. Very well, thanks. How are you? Has anyone asked you that ever?
No.
Some people have asked us questions, but we've never got like, how are you? I don't think. We probably have, and we're just forgetting.
Where I come from, that's just called polite.
Polite society.
I hope they're all watching this episode, all our previous stuff.
Right.
So, Micky, so this is just a show where McInnes and I we love talking about improv. We love talking about it so much that we get our guests on and force them to talk about improv. So just to start off with,
It's a chill show. I drank a beer during it.
Is that beer on already?
We don't accept sponsorship, so actually I'm not allowed to show the label.
You got to debadge it if you
Yeah.
can.
Oh.
It's actually called Moletti.
Oh, Mira Baretti. Okay, yeah.
Mila.
Mila.
Mila Baretti.
This is a chilled out show where we just chat to guests about how they do improv, what they like about it, what their history is. You're a member of our team, Micky. Maybe that's a good place to start. You're a member of Jazz Police. You're perhaps the most esteemed member, arguably. Maybe that's a way of me saying you're old.
John, what did we talk about? We said we're not allowed to talk about my age.
It sounds like, I'm not actually just saying that though. I am saying like within the Bristol community, I think you're of everybody in the team, you've probably done the most improv. I mean, me and Galker have done it before Bristol, I guess, but when I turned up here, as far as I'm aware, you were already doing it. So give us the broad strokes of what you've done. Where did you start? How did you get into it? Don't bore us for too long. We don't care.
Yeah, if it's getting boring, just like cut me off. That's fine.
But what's like your IMDb credits for improv?
Oh wow. So.
Not actual IMDb. Obviously, you're an improviser, so you don't have those.
Well, yeah, I guess I've done a fair bit. Done quite a variety. I did the improv panto. Is one of the things. Done various teams in kind of more American-y style long form stuff. I started. My first team was a team called Basement Acts, and we all got together from doing a course at the Bristol Folk House, which was the first improv thing I ever did with a teacher called Mark Bracken, and we did this like introduction kind of starter course, doing all the kind of like this is what status is, and yes and all of that kind of stuff, and it was fun and we wanted to carry on, so a bunch of us kind of found a basement where we all tried to teach each other how to do improv, and we did a couple of shows at the like early days of the Bristol Improv Theatre when it's called the Bristol Improv Network, or BIN, not a great acronym. That was when the what's now the Bristol Improv Theatre was still the Polish club, the Polish ex-servicemen's club. Did a couple of shows there. I was at the very first kind of meeting of the Unscripted Players, which is the Bristol Improv Theatre's like amateur improv society. Directed a show for them in the first year. Yeah, I've done it all, guys. I've done everything.
The very first time I saw you, you were comparing the theatre sports thing that the Up guys were doing. You had like a very fancy suit on.
and a big quiff and a lot of glitter on.
Yes.
We're going for like a Hunger Games announcer type vibe. So we did that. I hosted that, I think, 2 years in a row. The first one was a part of the now extinct Bristol Improv Festival. It was a big end of festival show, this like big theatre sports thing. Theatre Throwdown, I think we called it. And it went on for way too long.
That vaguely sounds right.
Yeah, and I think the one that you saw maybe was the I think it was the one for the Unscripted Players maybe in the first year. I think it was the second show of that year. That was fun. I enjoy hosting things.
So you're the Bristol Improv Elder.
Yeah, I think it's like me, Andy O, Steve Clements, Caitlin. We're like the old oldies that still. Well, I mean, the others aren't that old. I think Andy O's the same age as me. The others are much younger.
So you've seen the Bristol community grow into what the beautiful flower it is today.
Indeed, and such wonderful petals we have now.
What's your what's the most recent thing you're doing as well as Jazz Police, or have done?
It's got to be Hodgeprov, right?
Hodgeprov, yeah, that's currently in hibernation as everything is at the moment. But yeah, that's just a fun kind of knockabout, fortnightly show, low pressure, trying to kind of give a space for teams to perform, filling the gap left by the shit show, and I think the last like on-stage thing I did that wasn't Jazz Police, was improv, was the marathon.
Show?
The what?
The animal show for Up?
Yeah, the Up show, the nature documentary show. That was like really out of my comfort zone. There's a lot of movement stuff, a lot of just kind of like weird abstract animal things. But yeah, it was fun.
This feels like an even more chilled show than normal because we know you, Mickey. I feel like we've spoken to guests and we're trying to get to know them and we're trying to get their background, and I don't know, I feel like asking you the big top strong questions straight from, do you know what I mean?
I almost want to do it in reverse order with Mickey. I want to ask him like his best and worst moments and then drill into like what he likes in scenes. I don't know why.
Well, throw him straight into the deep end?
We usually do it in the opposite direction where we ask people like kind of how they do scenes, but then at the end, just for fun, be like, what's your favourite scene, what's your worst scene? But for whatever reason, maybe because we do know you, I want to ask it in reverse order.
Well, let's try it. Well, it's funny you say that because we've got some questions in the chat, and this comes from Little Tim Goodings, and he is actually one who asks.
Little tiny Timmy Goodings.
Little tiny Timmy Goodings. He asks. Well, he doesn't ask. He just says worst show / best show.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, what's been your worst and best show, Mickey, out of your career, your long career?
Oh, so many shows. Interesting question. I'm stalling for time.
I'm certain this isn't one of your best ones. This isn't bad or anything. I remember these were mostly good. But a thing that I don't think we ever discuss anymore was like, you went on a little tear at one point at the start of the shit show with Mickey Salads, or Mick Salads, where you just put together like a knock together team doing like an Armando. I remember at the start of that, I was like, these are good enough shows. Like that, the shit show not necessarily was meant to be good, but those were good sets when they won cage matches.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those shows actually. So I think they were heavily inspired by, I think, Improv for Humans, that kind of sort of thing, where I just wanted to get like people to. I think I would the setup was I would ask the audience to just ask a question and we would like chat about it, like do a kind of living roomy feel thing of just chatting and then doing scenes based off it. But yeah, those teams were just like anyone who was available, come and do it. And yeah, we got some like unreasonably good shows out of it, I think.
Yeah, for like a team who've never performed together, they were good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and yeah, I really liked the setup of it. Just one of my big like things I think in terms of like getting suggestions and getting ideas generated, and it's something I did at Hodgeprov a lot for the jams, was like a kind of, I called it like a living room jam, but it was like just kind of having a chat and then doing scenes based off it, rather than being like, here's a monologue of a person just kind of talking. And also there's a lot less structure needed in that kind of thing, whereas like you can have a chat, do a scene, do a couple of edits, and then do a couple of like cuts away and like variations of it, and then edit it and go back to chatting. I really like that kind of setup, because you can just get a team of like random people together and no one's going, what like beat of the Harold are we in right now, and who's meant to be doing what. So I kind of like that more like ragtag, freeform kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay, enough stalling. What's your favourite and worst show?
I think like shows where I've really like, the worst show I think where in terms of how I felt about things is probably moments during the marathon. Like I've done various of the Bristol improv marathons over the years, and I felt alright this year. Like last year though, I was like, for months after it, I was like, that was like some of the worst improv I've ever done in my life. I always find it in the marathon, it's like I feel like I've not managed to get into the main storyline and I don't really like have any impact on the show. But I kind of like this year like have accepted that, and I just like I enjoy what I'm doing. But yeah, last year was like it was very dark, and I was like, I'm the worst improviser in the world. But I think that's kind of like a common thing for a lot of people, especially for like the marathon, because it's just so like massive and insane, and there's so many like good improvisers in it. It's easy to be like, I'm the worst improviser here, why am I here? So I think in terms of like personally the lowest I felt about my own abilities in doing improv, it's probably like come out of like off the back of doing a marathon. For those who don't know, an improv marathon is like 26 hours of improvisation, of like a continuous narrative that there are breaks, but it's pretty much like full on for however many. Yeah, Gallagher's done it. He knows.
Yeah, it's long and tiresome.
I think one of the best shows I've done in terms of like enjoying, and I think probably that I remember it was because it was filmed and I watched it back a couple of times, was one of the panto shows that we did in the first year. So we did like I don't know, like 4 shows in total, but there's like a couple of kids or like family shows and a couple of like evening shows for adults. And one of the evening shows we did was ended up being about the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and an elf. I played the main character who was an elf who worked for Santa Claus but wanted to leave because the work conditions were bad, and ended up doing bad stuff for the Tooth Fairy, smashing little kids' teeth out. It was quite a dark, weird narrative, but there was some like really great songs in it. It was really fun, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I watched it back and was like, yeah, that was a good show.
That's good. Micky, it's safe to say that you've dipped your toes in so many pies in the improv community. And
love pie.
don't look at me like that, McInnes.
Dipped your toes in so many pies.
I think what I did was I mixed
It's a mangled metaphor.
yeah, dipping your toes in a pool and putting fingers in pies. I think I've sort of combined.
You've
them
put
together.
your fingers in a lot of pools, Mickey.
Yeah.
That one makes more sense. So we've discussed what's your favorite and best show, but what's been your favorite like experience in a community in Bristol? So you've done short form, you've done long form, you've done narrative stuff, you've done pantomime, you've even done some musical stuff, right? Some musical improv with like in the marathon. What's been your favorite? What's been your best experience in Bristol in any of those?
Gawker's really fishing for like, and was I in the scene or was that?
Oh, with a musical one? No.
What do you mean, like outside of shows, like in a community?
Yeah, like for example, Unscripted Players, or a marathon being like a community in itself, or shit show, or Hodgeprov. Yeah.
I think like, yeah, Unscripted Players has been a really great thing to be a part of, especially early on, and to watch that develop was great. And I think directing one of the shows in the first year was so it feels different, like directing a show to being in a show, obviously, and I just really liked that I could kind of guide these people and like go from the process of auditioning and like picking the people that you thought were going to work best together, and then seeing them kind of like come together as a group, like starting off a bit kind of like shy of each other, not maybe having performed together before, and kind of seeing them go from that to being like a really like tight-knit group, and then like seeing them on stage and kind of getting a weird kind of like burst of pride for these people that you're just kind of like and as someone who's like a big attention seeker and a show off when it comes to like improv, like I don't want to be the person who's doing the lights in the background. I want to be like the person who's on stage getting the applause. But there was something really nice about just being stood at the back and like someone hitting a moment of like story or like doing a joke and just being like really like when you watch a thing and someone does the thing that you're hoping that they're going to do and the audience is wanting them to do, and you can feel it at the back of the room, but you know yourself like being on stage that it's not always like obvious to you, but when you see someone nail a thing and you've kind of like helped to like shape that in some way, or maybe your like coaching or directing has kind of led them to that, it's like you feel a little like a swell of like pride in your chest at it. It's really nice to see.
Okay.
And like people who were in that show, I think who are early on now, like some of the best improvisers in Bristol, I think. And I feel like I contributed to that.
You are responsible for their work now, directing.
Yeah, well, there's great people in that show, like Anna Kemp, who I think is incredible. Sam Hall, who is like in everything. Yeah, really great. And like Steve Brown, who does like the Tales of Adventure stuff, which is like really great. So it's really nice to have like been a part. Hey guys, it was really great to be a part of their journey and to see where they've got to. But genuinely, it's really nice to have seen like people who are maybe like earlier on in their like improv kind of performance like careers, and like seeing where they've got to now from like a show that you did where frankly I had no idea what I was doing and was like, oh yeah, I'll direct a show, I've never like done that before. But yeah, it's nice.
I had to get a Borat quote in there.
Yeah, it's gotta be done.
So how do you do a scene, Mickey, if you're in a scene? Like, if you're in a scene, I don't know, what are you thinking? Does it make a difference if you're first or second out? Does it make a difference who you're with? I mean, I think this is true for everything, but like, what's like a commonality between all of those things that you've noticed, or are there any commonalities? Like, have you noticed anything that you do that always works? I don't mean like jokes. I mean like things you do in a scene that help you make the scene good. Is there anything that you used to do that you don't do because you don't think it works anymore? What are the things you do in a scene that you think helps you do a good scene?
I think something that I don't do enough, and I think whenever I do it, it's good, and I should do more of, is when I like genuinely listen to someone, and if they say something that's like out of place, I don't just breeze over it. If I like focus on a thing where I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this is like, because quite often that then will become the unusual thing, or it is the unusual thing, and yeah, I think like notes I've had before and like feedback from certain coaches is that like I can be quite good at like highlighting a thing or coming in to support, like if someone is, if like it's kind of obvious off stage what the game is but the people on stage aren't quite getting it, is like coming in and like kind of like doing a thing that will support that. I get often accused in Jazz Police of doing very brief walk-ons. Here you go. But that, like, genuinely, that usually I'm trying to just like give a thing that points to what I think the game is, and then getting out of there.
Yeah, framing it.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Framing it. I like to frame things.
I think we love it. It's just funny to us how like almost uninteresting based reality you are when you're doing it. Like in my mind, like a Mickey walk-on could be like. Hey, guy on the electric chair, just to remind you, and then just you'll walk out.
I always imagine
very useful, but like just the casualness you have in doing it.
I always imagine a Mickey walk-on to be two people at home doing a scene, and Mickey opening the window up from the outside and crawling in and saying, hey guys, just to remind you, and then crawling back out again without anyone noticing.
I do love it, and it always helps the scene.
That's fair. I think I have an instinct to be like, because I see it all the time, it's like people do like a walk-on and then they are then the scene, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like if I see a walk-on and the person stays on for longer than I think they should, I'm just sat there going, get out.
I presume you're also like, I presume there's some part of you that's also like, I'm like this too, where like if I watch a scene and like they hit like a fun thing and then they start moving away from it, my instinct is to be like, I need to like go on to help them be like, that what you did there was like the whole scene, and you don't need to go further than that. It's going to be dissatisfying if we don't do something with it.
Yeah,
like, that has to be a part of it, right? Like you wouldn't walk on if it was just a fun thing that we don't need to do it. To me, it's always like I have to walk on because they found the scene and they're going away from it. Because I mean, you're in the middle of a scene, you almost can't notice anything. So it's very helpful to be like, by the way, guys, this is pretty funny.
Yeah, I definitely try to do that. And I know being in scenes that like sometimes when people walk on and they are doing that, I sometimes am like, I don't know why you're here, because I'm so like, I've gone so far away from what you've seen. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? but yeah, I definitely like, I feel like I want to do that framing thing, and that's what I kind of try and do with walk-ons. But sometimes I am quite blunt, or like just like, here you go, bye.
What's I'll get to this question immediately then. What's something that somebody does in a scene that you hate? When somebody does it in the scene, you're like, you don't want to be judgmental, but your bones are like, I hate it. I don't want it to happen. If you're watching, or that's kind of different, but when you're in the scene.
I think whether being in scenes or watching them, like gags are always something that annoy me when someone, and I do it, everyone does it, when you do like a joke rather than like doing what the person would actually do in the scene, where like that back part of your brain is like, oh, here's a joke, but it's like not really actually that helpful.
Yeah.
That definitely annoys me. I mean, I've got loads of stuff. I'm just trying to think.
Well, here's a way to try and like find it. Like, think of a time when you've been in a scene with somebody, and when you walked out of it, you're like, I'd rather not do a scene with that person again. What is the thing that like caused that?
I think there's okay. So one thing is definitely like wackiness, where people like just try like I think it's something maybe you see a lot with like earlier kind of improvisers, is that like I'm gonna be really especially in like jams and stuff. I think that happened in like the jams we did up at the Edinburgh Festival, where people are just doing like, this is a crazy thing, and you're like in a scene with them, you're like, what can I do with that now? Like, I think.
Well, there's a flying horse there.
yeah. I think one thing I find funny with like, especially when people are that kind of like enthusiastic and they just want to be like, here are my ideas. It's just to like not say anything and to just be like, yeah.
I remember that jam that's exactly what you did, and you kept getting pulled on to the scene. So like you were just there saying, just reacting normally, and people kept bringing you on just so you
I'm like,
could react.
I'm not the unusual person. Stop it. Yeah.
It was very funny.
I kept like going to the back line, and before I'd like even got there, people were like, you, and I was like, I genuinely didn't understand why I kept being pulled.
That's right, you get getting pulled on, it's like a voice of reason to like analogous weird things. Which isn't weird, it's not insane, but it's a bit strange. Why does it have to be you?
Yeah, literally could be anybody just being the voice of reason.
No, but then they realise, this guy has a superpower to notice weird things.
It's weird being in a jam where everyone's decided that you're the voice of reason for everything. And so you just get pulled into and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to like be like, you're weird, you're being weird, this is strange.
I think you're right, it can be a burden sometimes. I've felt that sometimes where it's like, oof, well I guess for this show, all I am is just a normal dude. I think you get a lot of laughter from it, but it can be like, you can feel like a damp rag. You can be like, I guess I'm not the fun one.
Yeah, I guess it must be what it's like to be like the straight person in a double act. Like you're always the one that has to be like, I'm gonna bring this back to something sensible. But and I think people quite often are like, they don't want to be pigeonholed as that, or they don't want to like come out and do that all the time. But you do get big laughs out of it if you play it well. I've definitely done shows where like a lot of the people want to be these like big characters, or they've got these like, I'm going to do these like crazy things. I mean, I'm quite happy to be like, what are you doing?
I feel sometimes, within Jazz Place, that's almost like one of the sides you fall into. Not that it's all every show or whatever, but I feel within our team, I am definitely more unusual in most scenes. Not always. I can do a good voice of reason. I've done it too much, but I often what I feel like an initiation for a Jazz Place show is you come out and you initiate as a voice of reason, as like, so you're telling me X. A very Matt Besser initiation. Never initiates as an unusual guy. You're like, so you drove here without your glasses, even though you can't see? And I feel like within our team, everybody loves that. But like, I mean, one of the reasons I was a voice of reason would be like, I would do that sometimes. Like I took a lot from like Besser and Improv for Humans. And that was like just a style that I loved to like, because you initiate as a normal person and you feel like, oh, like this is the easiest way I'm providing logic, and I'm also giving you something to do. I now say like you should initiate as unusual, but like
Yeah.
I like your initiation as voice of reason because I used to do it all. That was my default for years. It was only after a while I was like, this is harder for somebody who's not done a lot of improv before.
Yeah, and what I found interesting in Jazz Police is I think I've definitely seen you do more of the unusual like side of things and that kind of those kind of characters, because I definitely saw you in kind of like shows and workshops before Jazz Police started, quite often taking that like voice of reason role. It's nice to see you be weird, John.
Nice to be weird.
I think like Jazz Police, maybe it's been a conscious decision, but I think like there are people in Jazz Police that kind of allow you to do that because you know that there's going to be other people that will kind of step into that voice of reason thing.
I also think by default, for whatever reason, that means that I become a voice of reason in group scenes. I love being a voice of reason in a group scene, but within our team, I don't know, I feel like Micky, you're much more of a more frequent voice of reason, often initiating as it. Galker, you kind of play both. I don't, in my mind, pin you down as one or the other. I just know I'm on our team one of the more frequently unusual characters because I am in some part rebelling against my past.
We talk about roles. Micky, what type of roles have you? So we've spoken a little bit about what role you play in Jazz Police a little bit. Is that the same in all the other teams you've been part of? That voice of reason type of role. What are the ones that you've been part of?
I think so.
Which one? Sorry, which one do you enjoy the most?
I think I enjoy doing both. I feel like I feel more comfortable in like the voice of reason like area in that kind of position. I definitely like have sat into that more easily, and certainly like in like unscripted players shows where it's kind of like you tend to be with a group of people that you've not maybe performed with much and you've only got like a short amount of time to kind of like perform together, or in like jams and stuff like that. Certainly with like people that I don't know as well, I kind of find it easier to kind of go into that like voice of reason position. It's like, because the thing is when someone says something that's like just completely off the wall, or like someone says something really flippantly because their character's like wacky and stuff, I can't let it, even if sometimes I start off trying to be like a bit weird, if someone says something like completely out of left wing and no one picks up on it, I don't know, maybe it's like the pedant in me where I'm just like, wait a minute, we've got to talk about what's just been said here. So I think maybe it's like more of a natural fit for me.
I'll let you take the next question, Galker, because my flatmate is asking me something.
Bye, John. So yeah, I think I've definitely done that. I think like
Micky, quick, he's gone. You can set me free. You can set me free. You can set me free.
John, where are you? Blink twice.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Sorry, what were you saying?
So yeah, I think I've more naturally kind of I naturally go into that voice of reasoning. I think in like marathon shows especially, I've had a bit more freedom to kind of do like weirder characters, because you're like a set character and then you're kind of that for it. Although I think I found it difficult because of that, because I can't like, I think with like long form shows or the type of kind of like Harold and stuff that we do, it's much easier to play to like closer to your own personality, whereas I find that kind of like more actory, being more of a character thing, a bit harder, because I can't like, I've got to like react more how that character would rather than how I would to something.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of confidence as well, because it sounds like you're more voice of reason and like you're more voice of reason because of the silly things that you pick up on, and that usually happens more in amateur shows or with people in jams or with people that aren't as experienced, and you tend to have much more fun with groups of people that are more experienced. If you have more freedom, I guess. Yeah. Oh, he's back.
We weren't saying anything. What was the emergency, Michael?
Her cat was in my room and was meowing to be let out.
Oh. What's the cat called?
That one is Oscar.
That one.
The other one's Lily. Lily doesn't go in my room.
Oh, Lily, no. I mean, we don't need to talk about the cats that are in your house.
Catprov.
Have any of you guys seen Baby Pro?
Yes, I have seen that. I mean, I saw something that was called that. I don't know if it's the same thing you're describing.
It's an improv show, but they have their babies or their toddlers on stage.
Yes, that's what I saw. I mean, I don't know if I'd see it a lot. I guess as a one-off show, whatever.
Oh, I mean, I know McInnes is not a big fan of gimmicks and improv, so I feel like that's like you're kind of like that's the sort of show you would veer away from. I
am fine with gimmick. I'm sounding so defensive about it. I am fine with gimmicks. I'm fine with gimmicks if it's like a one-off show or like just a thing for fun. I just don't like it when it's like, I don't know, somebody's charging a lot of money or like tickets for like Baby Pro.
We do have. I'll ask a question on the chat here. Let's see what we've got. Oh, it's a good one. This is from Jamie Brain. What is your favorite improvised line from a movie, and why do you like it?
I'm trying to think if I know of any improvised lines from movies.
It's kind of hard to know because you don't know the script a lot of the time.
Yeah. Have you guys not watched Mojo top 10s of improvised movie lines?
Wow. I mean, I like a lot of the Will Ferrell movies.
Adam McKay movies, like, I mean, it is Will Ferrell, but Adam McKay is like an old school improviser, and he uses a lot of improv as his set.
Yeah.
Like the what's the NASCAR one?
Bobby the thingy.
Yeah.
The Battle of Bobby. Ricky Bobby. Battle of the Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby. Yeah. I think a lot of that's like there's a lot of improv stuff in that. I mean, I can't think of specific lines, but I remember like
there's a specific scene I've heard Will Hines talk about. It's not improvised, but it is an example.
My best friend, Will Hines.
Yes, your best friend Will Hines, who I assume is watching because he's your best friend. He wants to support you.
Yeah, he'll be watching this.
He's given an example from that movie, which I have passed on in workshops, which is like a good example of a group game. I think it's Ricky Bobby, where the part in that where Ricky thinks he's on fire and then he's like paralyzed, and then to prove that he's like disabled, he stabs his leg with a knife.
Yeah.
And then an example of a group game is what happens next, which is like at one point later there's a second knife. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just like a funny pattern.
Oh yeah, they're like using another knife to try and get the first one out.
Yes. It doesn't make any like logical sense why you would do that. But in a group game, you don't really have time for that kind of thing. You're doing like a montage of like funny patterns. Of course, you want to almost go very quickly with that knife.
I think there's like an extended like bit of that in the outtakes after because they show a lot of the outtakes during the credits of that film, which is like showing all the kind of improv bits that weren't put in. I think that scene there's like an extended bit of it, just like running around with a knife, and it's like. So yeah, I couldn't think of any like specific improv lines from movies, but I feel like I've heard about something recently. You sometimes hear about like, oh, that great line was actually improvised in that film. And you're like,
I'm always somewhat skeptical of it. I mean, I mean, I assume that some of that is true, but a lot of it must be like going up to like the writer or director beforehand, and be like, "Hey, I want to like say this on a take," and they're like, okay, maybe," rather than like truly improvised.
Yeah. So in answer to the question, Gallagher, I don't know.
Ooh.
Great.
How about this? How about this, Mickey? And what's any note you've got that you think helped? Like, it wasn't just like, that's an interesting way of thinking. Anything you've ever learned in any workshop ever that, like, when you started doing it, it made your scenes easier to do. And before that, you weren't doing it, and then when you got it, you started doing it. It was better.
Jonathan Pitts.
Yeah.
He did I think you guys going over to a workshop in Bristol a couple of years back, and I think this was from his workshop. He said if you're going to ask questions in scenes, then like follow it up with because. So like if you're going to be like, why are you doing this thing? Like why are you like being so stupid today? And then you say because, and then you like add an extra because you normally do this, or because you're like blah 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 whatever. So then the question then becomes like a framing thing, or it becomes like you're then endowing them with something rather than like putting it on them to like answer, like to create something for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was I'm not always great at doing it, but I definitely after I did that workshop was like trying like consciously to do that more. And occasionally that will pop into my head when I ask a question, and I will like add something onto it. And I think that made a big difference for me, because I definitely have always had an issue with because sometimes I'll be in the scene and I'll just be like, I'm just going to ask what they're doing.
What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Who are you? What's going on?
I think that's part of that kind of like kind of inclination to be voice of reason, to be like, why are you being weird? Like what is happening?
Yeah.
Rather than like adding to it, to be like, why are you doing? Like, tell me what you think the scene is, and I'll like just go on that.
Even the emphasis you were putting there is interesting. You know, I've not heard that in a workshop or anything, but that's interesting when you said, why are you doing that? Like, that's an interesting way to consider it, you know? Like, not just that you want the why, but like, almost if you infer like the weird thing is this person doing it, even that helps a little bit. But I agree, that's a great little like practical. I love like just practical things you can do in scenes. I think I got that tip from bloody Carlene before that workshop, but it is like just literally like just a checklist type thing of like, oh, of course, like when I ask a question, like they don't know why I'm asking it, like I'm telling them why I'm asking it with the because.
Yeah, definitely. Carlene's great. She once described me as weirdly confident.
And it buried itself into your psyche forever.
Best backhanded compliment ever. Just like, you're confident, but it's weird that you would be that confident.
I don't understand why you're confident, but okay.
Mickey, you've been something that comes to my mind is well, you're experienced, but I found that a lot of people.
Is this the Jimi Hendrix question?
Mickey, you're experienced, but are you Jimi Hendrix experienced?
Ooh.
No, that isn't the question. So I found that a lot of people get frustrated because you've been doing it for so long, and I find that some people get frustrated that they're not really, it's a community type thing, improv, and there's nowhere really else to go. But you've been doing it for so long, and I think.
How many times are you going to say you've been doing it for so long?
It's just you're just so old, Mickey.
Sorry. Sorry, finish your question.
But I find that one of the excuses is, or one of the reasons why people get bored of doing improv for so long is because they're mainly just improvising for their friends. It's just one community, and they're just doing it for a group of people, a group of improvisers who just keep turning up to the same shows. So what's been your experience performing for a community, so a group, like in the theatre with a group of improvisers just watching, and a comedy audience where maybe they don't know anything about improv and you're performing for it for the first time?
Well, it's a multi-layered question. I think so. I mean, first off, like I do improv because it's fun. I enjoy doing it, whether it's to like 2 people and a dog. Literally a show we did. Or like, or to like a
Was it
like,
2 people?
It was slightly more than 2 people, but
Oh, I was like, was it 1 person?
No, it was like 3 random people, a dog, and maybe the other team that were performing, the other improv.
Yeah. Or to like do it. I mean, I did a show at. I don't want to brag. I did a show at the Old Vic this year. To like the Slapstick Festival crowd, which was like a big audience. And I mean, I can see why people would be like, what's the point in this? What am I like? What's the progression? Where am I gonna like? I want like seeing it as like a career, but I mean, I just do it for the love of doing it, guys. But no, like genuinely though, I kind of enjoy. And like Hodgeprov shows are famously poorly attended, but I still enjoy doing them. And like even when we did a show once where literally no audience turned up, and we basically just did a workshop. That's still fun. Hang out and have some beers. But
I would say of all of the characteristics of you, Mickey, I would say of your defining feature is you're the chillest improviser I know. Like, I don't know anybody else is more chilled out. I don't know if that's necessarily like even just in a scene wise thing, just in like dealing with the logistics of improv. And the fact that you run an improv night, like that's an unforgiving nightmare job that nobody wants.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's a thing that gets definitely, I've heard said about me before, not just in like relation to improv, but just like generally. And I think I guess it's a good thing that is how I come across. It's not always true, like internally, and I'm like an incredibly angry person in some regards. I mean, my wife will tell you that if I haven't eaten for like, if I haven't eaten for long enough, I get incredibly hangry and like argumentative and sulky because I haven't. There's like a couple of my friends have got an ongoing joke because we were away at Centre Parks with them while we were planning our wedding, and I was getting really annoyed about waiting, and they had realised I was probably hungry, and they asked if I wanted some fruit, and I was like, no, I don't want any fucking fruit, and then I ate some and I was fine. And that gets brought up a lot. So I think I mean, it's like, it's good that people kind of perceive that, I guess. Maybe it sometimes comes across as like not being committed or passionate.
I don't think so.
But I mean, I definitely like Hodgeprov has been like one of the kind of most well, I mean, you guys know, like running an improv night is like totally unforgiving, and sometimes like I get very like sensitive about people criticizing it, even in a joking way. I mean, we all know that. But yeah, I you know, I enjoy doing improv, and I just want to like have space for other people to do it, and if I can like do something towards that, I'm happy to. And like, I never got into improv thinking it would be some kind of like big comedy career. I mean, I started off doing improv off the back of doing stand-up because I listened to a podcast where Sarah Pascoe's, the Comedian's Comedian podcast, where she was talking about doing stand-up and mentioned that she did improv. And I was like, that's interesting. Maybe I'll try that. And so that's kind of why I signed up for it in the first place. I actually met Sarah Pascoe after that and told her that's why I told her I got into improv because I listened to her podcast. And she was incredibly nice about it because I probably sounded mental.
I did assume you were going to, but she was very like apologetic about it.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
That's the spirit of it. That's
Yeah.
nice. I like that.
You know,
but hey, don't get me wrong. If someone turned up tomorrow and was like, "We're going to pay you £1 million to do an improv show on TV," I'd be like, "Yeah." I'm happy to be a sellout.
Let's okay, this is very on the fly. Gallagher, let's do this. Let's create the fire question round. Where
You mean
where
quick fire?
fire question round.
The
Fire question.
We're going to ask you about
Questions about
the the fire triangle.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you a list of people, and you have to tell me if you hate them or look. No.
Me and Gallagher, one at a time, will like pitch a subject on improv to you. It can be as general as initiation, second beats, or whatever. And then you have to like very quickly like say your piece on it. Less than a minute. Like almost like 1, maybe 2 sentences. If you want to say more, if it's a subject you really want to go off on, go a little bit longer, but like just like all the get rid of like the minutia bullshit that like people have probably heard or don't care about. What's this thing that you like think about it? Are you ready for the fire questions?
I'm nervous. Yeah.
I have to
Fire
think.
them at me.
Why are you nervous?
Have
Oh my goodness.
you got some in your brain, Gallagher?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Mickey, Harold, what do you think?
Harold. I think it is badly thought of, but it is a great way to do improv if it's done right.
Mickey, doing an organic improv show with no suggestion.
I think I always struggle with that. I like to have something to bounce off. So I love to see it, but I'm not great at doing it.
Edits.
Need to be done faster and more often. Always, like every show I see, I'm like, edit now, edit now, edit now.
Group game Sound and Movement.
Are you talking about the opening that we do, or just generally Sound and Movement? Because I was a bit of flocking.
Oh yeah, well, ours is like Sound and Movement into flocking, but I just Sound and Movement as a group game, not an opening.
I enjoy it. I always feel a little bit wanky when I do Sound and Movement stuff. Just a little. There's just a part of me that I can't let go of. Where I'm like, I look like such a twat.
Tags and first beats.
Only if you've got a really, really good reason. Like, I'm not a hard and fast rules guy when it comes. Actually, no, that's not true. I definitely, if I see people do something which I think breaks the rules, I'm like, you probably shouldn't have done. Like, if it's rare that you see someone do that and it pays out unless they're really talented. So if you're gonna do a tag in the first beat, boy, you better know what you're doing.
Shit, I had one. Delivering monologues yourself.
I don't like it. Every time I have to do a monologue, I feel like everything that's ever happened to me goes out of my brain, and I'm like, I don't have any stories to tell. I wish I was better at it.
You're in a scene that isn't working. It's not getting edited. What do you do? Pop quiz, hot shot. What do you do? It's not working. The audience are not laughing at anything. It's a minute in. Nobody's editing.
I don't have a solution. Like I wish I knew what to do in those moments, because anytime it happens to me, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do. I think sometimes you just gotta write it out. Like sometimes you just gotta be like, the next scene is gonna be better, so we'll just hope the audience forgives us.
You've just done a really bad show. How do you try and get out of your funk?
Well, it's never happened to me. No, I think I've learned to, well, I think I try to not let the highs affect me as much, and then the lows don't hit me as bad. So like I try to like keep a more even keel either way, because it's easy. I think it's easy to like be really bummed out, and then when like a good show happens, to like really blow it out of proportion. So I think by like it's much easier to like calm your like reaction to a good show than it is to a bad show, but by doing that it kind of helps with the other one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Third beats, but you're not allowed to say connections. What do you want?
What do I want in a third beat?
But not a connection.
I want something to happen that the audience is gonna like go, yeah, that was worth it.
That's very good. I might
doesn't
steal
have to
that.
be a connection, but it's just something happens that like they go, oh, that makes sense of the whole like show. But...
Even that's more than I want. I prefer your first answer. That's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think if the audience, like, at the end, in that moment, go, yeah, I think that was good. That's all I want.
What's the harshest note you've heard in a class?
Oh, wow.
Maybe you agreed with it, maybe you didn't, but it was like kind of stinging to whoever reciprocated it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of...
I got him, McInnes. I got him.
You stopped me there.
On the ropes.
My mind always goes to Starzinski's class in this question. I think he's I think he's a great teacher, but I think he's like pretty. He doesn't hug you, doesn't necessarily make you feel super good.
I would say, I can't remember a specific one, but it would probably be Carlene. Because I definitely, like, Carlene said stuff that I've been like, oh wow, but I've usually agreed with it. But I'm struggling to think of a specific example.
Weirdly confident.
Yeah, when she said that was very stingy. I think the full thing of that was like, you can go first, you're weirdly confident. Like an exercise. But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't think of a specific.
That means I win. I beat McInnes in the fire round. Mickey, would you ever teach? Would you ever? You've directed and you've performed in shows, but would you ever coach or teach?
I have done.
Yeah, I've coached. You coached me when I was in Spawn Track.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to do more of that. I did coach a bit for Unscripted Players in the first year, and a couple of bit later I did a couple of. I think I ran a couple of workshops when you were in charge of that stuff, Gallagher. But yeah, I mean, I would love to. I would love to. I enjoy it. I think like there's definitely. I feel like doing coaching or teaching engages a completely different part of your brain, and because I like to go to an improv show and just like laugh and not try and think too much about what they're doing technically, although it gets harder to do that the more you kind of do it. But I do like to kind of sit down and take notes and be like, and I try not to be too like prescriptive and be like, you should do this all the time, but just to be like, this is a thing you did, maybe like you could not do that. But to just like talk about what it was and like what other moves could have been done or like what other options there are, because I think like I've heard you talk about this, Gallagher, is that you've had feedback before where people have been like, oh, this didn't go so well, this is like the exact thing we should do next time if this whole situation comes up again, which it probably won't because it's improv. Which isn't necessarily like that helpful, but yeah, I you know, hey, if you've got classes, hey, if your team needs a coach, hit up the most esteemed member of Jazz Police
For chill times.
for a chill time, and I'll only shout at you if I'm hungry.
Bake and chill?
What?
So, Mickey, this is the question that we've all been waiting for. Like, what is it about Jazz Police that just makes you think it's the best team you've ever been part of?
Well, I genuinely do think that. I know you said it ironically,
What?
but it's definitely been my favourite team to be a part of, and I think it's more to do with like stuff that isn't improv. Why I enjoy being part of it. Like our Facebook chat is great. Gallagher, maybe join in on it sometime.
Gallagher just doesn't, and it's sad. Makes me cry sometimes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Only member who's like, no, I'm above it. I'm above it.
Like,
No, it's never above it. It's just there's so
No,
many
so
messages.
much.
I'm working, and then all I hear is beep, 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 and then I look at my phone, and it's like 137 messages.
Wasn't
Oh,
true
God.
recently. Wasn't true recently. You were not at work for months.
yeah, that's true. You weren't. You were playing Fortnite.
You were playing Fortnite with your real friends, Gallagher, not us.
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is going on right now?
And this is why I love Jazz Police. But, yeah, genuinely, like since the whole like lockdown thing and everyone's been stuck at home, the Jazz Police chat has been a great. It's been a comfort in hard times, but also just like like doing quizzes and stuff, playing Fortnite with some of the team, just stuff like that, and like going to Edinburgh Festival at the start of this year, like as a crew and like all hanging out.
I feel like the amount of gigs we did was like rare for any improv team I've been a member of. That was like a good thing. Like,
oh, I mean, I was in a team called Binge Bunch with Harry Day and Flex and Flora and Clemens, some great improvisers, and we did a lot of. We were doing like weekly rehearsals basically. John was and McInnes was coaching us, but we did one show and like there was only about 3 of the team there.
it was a good show, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I think it was. I forgot that we were doing a macro scene, Harold, like in the first scene. But
Yeah, but y'all like went with it. Like y'all just like okay.
But yeah, so that I've done, and yeah, there's been plenty of teams I've been in where it's been like, yeah, we'll meet up every week and rehearse, but we won't actually do shows. And like we've like travelled quite far out of town to do shows and gone up to, and like Edinburgh's the first improv festival I've been to outside of Bristol, and it was really fun to go with Jazz Police and just like spend a few days hanging out, doing like weird late night jams and drinking in strange bars in Edinburgh and getting to know John's Scottish friends, who I mean, I still really want Martin to like me, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
What?
I mean, Gallagher doesn't read the chat, so he wouldn't be aware of this
I wouldn't
bit.
know.
But the ongoing thing is that Martin's like treats it and negs everybody.
Yeah, he's like incredibly cool, and we're all trying to impress him, but he's just like not bothered.
Oh,
It's too chill.
I like
But
Martin.
I think that stuff is what like makes it a great team to be in, and I feel like that kind of like being kind of quite good friends and being a tight knit group like helps with the on stage stuff as well. I feel like we kind of get into that place where we kind of starting to like understand each other's kind of psychology and
Sandwiches. Oh.
If this is what the chat is like, I'm glad I'm not looking at it.
Well, we're glad you're not there.
Everyone's
drunk again.
Gallagher. Everyone's got a game in the chat now. You need your own game.
Again?
Yeah.
Mine's I'm really old.
Mickey's really old.
I know that one.
McInnes hates popular stuff.
I hate popular stuff.
McInnes doesn't like something because it's popular.
I thought you were the conspiracy nut.
No,
People
it's not.
say that, but like it's not like anybody does anything with it. But the popularity thing, people did stuff with it.
Okay.
It also has to be something like you're not kind of happy about. People like having fun with, like
Oh, right, okay.
like Tim's is eating ass.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I think Gallagher's is that he's above Jazz Police.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gallagher's because he doesn't play Fortnite with us. He
No.
doesn't join in the chat. He's too.
No, he's got his own friends. He doesn't join
I
the
played
chat.
Fortnite with you once.
I've been working. I work full time. Oh,
Yeah.
you're
I work full time.
We all work full time nowadays.
Oh dear.
I work full time, and I've got a dog, and a
Yeah.
wife.
And
My wife.
you're retired at this point.
Yeah. Well, Mickey,
Yeah.
I've only got a full time job. Just imagine how busy, like how stressful that is if I'm not making time for it.
Think about that.
Okay, I'll think about it.
You'll get back to me. You'll get back to me
Yeah.
on the answer. Okay.
But to get back to the question, I think Jazz Police is the best improv team because we're the best friends.
Oh. What a lovely ending. What a wonderful. McInnes, have you got one last question to ask Mickey? Or should we leave it on such a wonderful, positive note?
No, I want to
I feel
drag it
like
down.
that's-
I want to drag it down.
We're gonna say like that.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen.
Okay. How do we destroy the emotional tone of the chat now? Okay, yeah. If you met somebody today and they were about to do their first improv class, what's like one piece of advice you would give them? And they were going to do scenes. They were going to do scenes. None of this just games nonsense. They are doing scenes.
Run. I think I would say, don't try and be funny.
I think that's
that
good
would
advice.
be The first, I think I would say, yeah, just like listen, don't try and be funny. Something will happen. I think, yeah. I wish someone had said that to me when I started. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people start out doing games, and like a lot of the kind of early beginner workshops tend to be quite game heavy.
Yeah.
as in like short form kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. But
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily. I think it does strain your brain a little bit, but it isn't necessarily what you want in a scene.
Actually, I think if someone was doing scenes, I'm not sure it's great, maybe not great advice for the first time, but I think if it was like one piece of advice, it would just be step out, like just step off the back line.
Be weirdly confident.
Yeah, be weirdly confident. Be more confident than people expect you to be.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I think I was always that person in improv classes, even early on, who was like the first one to volunteer to do like the new exercise, which you didn't know what it was going to be yet, or like the first person to like step off the back line into a scene. And to like an annoying extent. Like I got to a point where I was like, I need to stop doing that. I need to like not be the first. But like a lot of times in workshops, people don't do that, and everyone's just kind of like milling around, being like, I don't want to be the first one.
Yeah.
But I think definitely if someone's doing scenes and it was their first workshop, my advice would be like just like step forward off that back line, which is scary, but like, you know, you don't want to just not experience it. That's probably terrible advice. I don't know.
No, that's.
It seems like good advice.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't know who this person is. You're trying to come up with general advice based on nothing. It's as good advice as anything else.
I would be like, fight the biggest, meanest improviser there to show that you're dominant.
Initiate on the biggest guy there.
Yeah. Just like pull the biggest guy off the back line. And
always make your initiation. Hey, I'm not scared of you.
Be like, I'm crazy.
Yeehaw! I'm a crazy cowboy. Bang bang.
Hero.
Excuse me, I have to get my mobile phone.
They'll respect you, Mickey. They'll respect your guts.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Actually,
Sign of respect to everybody.
My advice would be don't do a gun like this, and don't do a phone like this. That would be my. Actually, going back to like the thing that you hate seeing people doing scenes, bad object work is the thing that always really pisses me off. People are like, I've got a gun. Look at my fingers. And I know some people like that's just like pedantic, but it takes me out of a scene.
I agree.
I see it. I see it.
I agree, but like it only annoys me a little bit because it's needless.
Yeah. So, in short, my advice is take on the biggest improviser.
Good advice.
You know, I have to apologize to you guys. And to you, McInnes, because what Mickey said before about, you know, it's all about friends was a very nice ending, but I genuinely do think that my advice being to beat the toughest guy up is probably better advice. Sure, it really is. So
Cool.
I apologize.
If you're doing your first workshop and John Lomas is there, take him down.
Take him out.
Everyone will respect you forever.
Cool. Well,
As one of the hosts, I can't condone violence upon John Lomas.
That's true. He's a nice guy. But that's all we've got time for. Because we've been on the clock. Want to thank Micky Baker. Micky Baker, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. It was lovely hearing from you.
Yeah, anything you want to plug, Gallagher? Anything you want to plug, Mickey? Anything you want to plug, John?
Oh, yourself, McInnes. Well, let's start with Mickey. Mickey, any plans?
Not really. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Micky Baker, but you know, mostly I'm just like retweeting stuff. I have very little of my own content to add to Twitter. But you know, when we're all out of this lockdown, look out for Jazz Police. Find us on Facebook. Look for Hodgeprov. That might come back. It's still on Facebook, so search it out.
McInnes, anything to plug?
Same. I post all my stuff to Twitter. Liebot, Lyebot. I do a show every Tuesday at Couch Improv. You can find some on Facebook. And Jazz Police. We're on all of the social media, I think. Apart from Instagram, but I don't care about that.
No.
But we are on LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn. I've made sure of that.
My plugs also include visit Jazz Police on all social media sites, and especially Twitter, because apparently it's on fire at the moment with all the tweets that are coming out. But I also have...
You're saying there's so many tweets that the Twitter account itself has caught fire?
Yes.
Okay.
And by so many tweets, I think 2, but they were very good.
So like the amount of like views to look at the tweet is causing the processor on a server somewhere to explode with the amount of requests to view it.
McInnes, it's literally on fire.
You can catch up on the Jazz Police's first dates series of tweets, which I think we've had 2, and there's been about a month between.
Oh, really? I thought they were pretty good. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, there's only been 2.
2? Oh no, I really don't know.
There were more on the chat, but only 2 have been released to the public.
Oh, I see. That's probably why. Anyway, I'm also in a team called Boat Club. We do shows every Monday. Follow us on YouTube, and as always, BLC here on the YouTube channel. Follow us on our Facebook page, and more interviews and Billy Boy shows right here on the YouTube page. Or if you're looking at this on Facebook, it's somewhere here. That's all I've got to say about that.
Bye!
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mickey.
I did fame.